Welcome to the webinar. We haven't done this in a while, but things have been pretty busy all across the board. I'm sure everybody feels it. Um, but we're super stoked to have Deane Kahle here today. She's going to talk about resiliency and how that looks with what we're doing and the people that we serve. Most of us are peer supporters. Some of us are clinicians, or maybe a couple of chaplains on the webinar. I'm going to let Deane do kind of the bulk of her introduction. She does a much better job than I could. So I let her go. Deane, thank you so much for being here. And I'm going to turn it over to you. And you have the floor. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Well, good morning. My name is Deane Kahle. I am a clinician. I have worked with the Counseling Team International since 2011. Have seen far too many mass casualties than I care to remember. I do it all. I teach quite a bit. I respond to critical incidents all over the country and see clients. So I'm so thankful to have been asked to share with you today to present on resiliency. It is certainly my hottest topic, probably the hottest topic in the world right now. Um, and so I'm just honored to be here with you. Please interrupt and ask questions, raise your hand or put your name and, your question in the chat box. Tony's going to be helping monitor that. But certainly I'm happy to answer as many questions at the end, but also please feel free to inject any questions along the way. So resiliency was a topic that I didn't know a whole lot about back when I started researching it and looking into it. It was 2018 that I found myself in a whole world of hurt. I was exhausted all the time, waking up tired, going to sleep tired. I was feeling very ineffective in the work that I was doing. I had worked 9 first responder suicides. I had, we had Montecito, the mud flow there. We had the Vegas mass shooting. We had school shootings, aviation incidents, line of duty deaths. I mean, just stacking, 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 stacking. And I just felt like there wasn't enough of me to go around. And it was really hurting, morally, spiritually, physically. And I couldn't quite figure out what to do about it. There wasn't really a whole lot of conversation around wellness, around resiliency. But I knew I had to change something. And so I took a huge step back from responding to calls, from deployments, even from clients and teaching. And I dove headfirst into the world of wellness. I was fortunate enough to get a position with a large county agency that said, we want to hire you to build a wellness program for our staff. At the time, these 2 particular units, that was about 3,200 people. And the irony of it all is I was the sickest I had ever been. I was exhausted. I had no boundaries. I had gained weight. I did nothing but work. I didn't know how to say no. I said yes to every deployment, and they want me to build a wellness program. It was funny, but I learned so for 3 years, I had this project and I got to learn everything there was to learn about burnout and wellness and resiliency. And so I'm so thankful to be able to share all that I've gleaned from all of that experience with you here today. So resilience, well, let's see if I can get this there we go. If we look at the technical definition of resilience, it's the process and outcome of successfully adapting to difficult or challenging life circumstances, especially through mental, emotional, and behavioral flexibility and adjustment to external and internal demands. So there's the, the American Psychological Association definition of resiliency or resilience. And so how that looks, it looks a little different to everybody else or to others, doesn't always look the same. Resilience, in other words, is the ability to bounce back, the ability to thrive in challenging circumstances. My favorite picture of resilience is the palm tree. Here in California, palm trees are all over the place, and it's rare that you see a dead palm tree. They are incredibly resilient. They can withstand strong winds and high temperatures and low temperatures, and they bend rather than break during those weather conditions. So think of palm trees when you think of resilience. That might give you a better picture of what resilience is. There's flexibility. I've put together the eyes of resilient people. So we found that there are characteristics or qualities that people possess. So if we were to take a picture of the most resilient person, they would have these characteristics. And I'm going to define each of them for you. So independent doesn't mean I can do it alone. Independent means I believe I can do it. So there's this knowing or this belief or this strength on the inside that I have autonomy, I have agency to do what needs to be done for my well-being, my mental health, my physical health. Then there's the interdependence. I recognize I need other people to get this work done. I had never asked for help. I had been hyper independent and hyper like I can do it all by myself until I recognized, oh, I can't. And interdependency had to come into play. So, and we all know our first responders have the hardest time relying on other people. They have the hardest time asking for help. I was just having a conversation the other day, and I was sharing about an app that I like. It's Curable is the app primarily for chronic pain, but it's just another form of meditation, guided meditation, and they have an SOS button. So that if you wake up in the middle of the night and you have a horrible headache or your back is killing you, you can click this SOS button and the lady's voice is very calming and says, I'm here with you. And I was telling this to a first responder and he said, it will be a cold day in hell before I ever press that SOS button. And I said, you guys, seriously, you are too strong for too long. They maintain insight. A resilient person has the ability to look at themselves and say, is this working? Is this not working? Can I be doing something better? Let me correct that behavior, or let me correct those words. They have the ability to look at themselves. They take initiative. They see a problem, they see something that needs to be taken care of, and they get to it. They do it. They're innovative. They're creative. You may have heard this line, the mother of invention is necessity. But there has to be some innovation in there, and the willingness and the ability to say, let's bootstrap something together and see if this works. They have an internal compass, and this would be sort of the house for all of their values. An internal compass is the filter by which all decisions are made, whether that's your faith, your family, your friends, your value in work ethic, any kind of internal compass that guides your decision making. And they have a sense of humor. They have the ability to laugh at things that probably others would think were inappropriate, but we know that gallows humor is incredibly healing. It's powerful, it's necessary, and it can be helpful. So the biological model, it's important to take a look at what happens to our physical body under stress, what happens to our nervous system under stress. And this picture here is my absolute favorite demonstration of what our nervous system experiences. So Dr. Dan Siegel created this theory of the window of tolerance. That's his term. And the window of tolerance is that optimal zone where you can deal with stress from everyday life. And this is where you connect and rest and digest, as the little unicorn floaty illustrates, this is smooth sailing. The challenge is, particularly for first responders, they find themselves in a hyper aroused state. This is the nervous system on fire. This is the fight or flight or sympathetic nervous system response that requires a lot of energy, a lot of activation. And what's good about this way in which the nervous system responds to threat and responds to what I need to be doing is it feels good. You feel alive and competent and confident and able. And so it becomes a little bit addictive because it feels so good to be in this state, but there's some challenges to it. It is not a sustainable state to stay in. You can't stay in a hyper aroused state. It's like, even Indy cars going around the track need to pit stop. So our nervous system in a hyper aroused state will burn out. It will become exhausted. It's like all the little nerve endings are like, we are fried. Can you give us a break here? So often what happens from this hyper aroused burning out state, not the technical burnout term, I'll get to that shortly, but this like burning out of all of my resources, it plummets into a hypo aroused state. So this is the freeze response. This is a dorsal vagal response. This is feeling emotionally flat or numb, having a lack of energy. And this is what Dr. Kevin Gilmartin refers to in his book, The Emotional Survival for Law Enforcement, which, by the way, is a fantastic book for firefighters as well. He refers to this as the magic chair, where the only place that you can function and survive at home after being in this hyper aroused state is in this magic chair with the remote, the recliner and a remote. Don't talk to me. Don't bother me. I can't handle any stressors. I'm just going to sit here and numb out because the nervous system has said, we're done here. Well, I can't take on one more stressor. I can't respond to one more thing. This is walking in the door, stepping on a Lego and wanting to burn the house down. Like I can't take any more. And so it becomes a challenge to find that sweet spot, that window of tolerance where I can play with the kids. I can talk to my spouse about how their day was, playing with the dogs, enjoying my life. So dysregulation is a common theme among first responders because it's these two extreme places that the nervous system goes. So foundation,
sorry.
Please.
Can you go? Yeah.
Yep.
We had a question, and I'm probably going to butcher the question, but the question was, how does the window of tolerance relate to the Johari or Johari window? Johari. I'm not sure if you've heard of that, but
I don't know that I have. I almost want to Google it.
okay.
Does someone want to explain what that is? I would love to hear.
Hi, folks. Thank you for letting me be here. Not a psychologist or anything. The Johari, it's got 4 panes in it, and how you look through each pane of glass will determine where you are, and it's with past events and current events. I don't know if that's any help to you or anything worse. Sorry if I've complicated things. I apologize.
No, not at all. I love always. It's fascinating to hear other theories or other perspectives. I feel ignorant to be able to speak on it because I'm not too familiar with it, but it sounds like there's some similarity with regard to perspective. So the person who is experiencing specifically talking about this window of tolerance, the person that's experienced hyperarousal or hypoarousal has a perspective that is different if they were in that window of tolerance. So it sounds like the Johari is speaking to something similar. Perhaps if someone has experienced some really bad things in their life, that has jaded that pain of perspective, I'm guessing. Yeah. Does anyone know anything else about it? Or heard
Thank you,
anything?
ma'am. That for me, that was it. Like my ACEs score was 8 out of 10.
Ah,
So everything is
yeah.
like, you know what I'm saying? Everything is like this, eh?
Oh, yes,
So
yes.
this is a cool window that you've shown me.
Oh, good, good. And, we're really beginning to understand more and more about how the nervous system is negatively affected by particularly our adverse childhood events. So if those listening don't know, ACEs or adverse childhood events, is a list of 10 items. And the higher the number, the higher the risk for addiction, substance abuse, difficulty in relationships. Primarily, it was looked at with regard to addiction. But we've recognized that these experiences in early childhood really follow us. Our body holds on to a lot of these experiences and has shifted our nervous system. And that trauma, the way the body responds, is a trauma response. So keeping the word trauma, the experience out of it, the body responds in a trauma response way. So you could look at this just through the lens of traumatic experiences. Your nervous system is going to choose one of two responses: hyperarousal, which is I'm going to fight off this threat, or hypoarousal, I'm going to freeze and do my best to survive it without fighting. And you don't always get to choose. Some victims of crimes have said, I froze. What is wrong with me? Why did I freeze? Why didn't I fight? Well, because you didn't get a choice. Your nervous system said, this is what we have to do to survive this threat right now. So that can be healed. Our nervous systems can be healed. Check out The Biology of Trauma by Dr. Amie Apagian. She goes by Dr. Amie, and it's spelled Aimie. She is a phenomenal physician who, while she was going through her residency as a new surgeon, experienced some significant burnout and didn't understand what to do about it. She dove into what is going on with my nervous system, what is going on with my body, and created just now papers upon papers addressing this trauma response that our body experiences when it's under threat. And how by using somatic experiencing, so body systems, we can heal and reverse some of that response. So it's fascinating. Anything more on the window of tolerance? Has anybody seen this before, or did you glean some insight from seeing this? Does this sort of put some pieces of the puzzle together and go, oh, I see this. I recognize this in myself, or I recognize this in my significant other or my peers? I'm going to assume many of you are nodding. All right. So foundations of resilience, so how are we born with resilience? Is it something we either have or we don't have? No, actually, we can build it and develop it. Now, if we looked at just strictly biologic resilience, this is the survival of the fittest sort of theory. And it's like, well, you either have it or you don't, right? Is this organism going to survive or is it not? Well, we'll see how it goes. And there's some DNA and systems going on in there that will help them to survive it, or it won't. But what we know about resilience is it can be built. You can lay some bricks down and start from scratch if you haven't had it, or strengthen, you sort of back to the basics, strengthen a resiliency that maybe you haven't been experiencing in a while. And this is what I had to do in recovering from my own burnout. I didn't even know where to start. And I started looking into this, going, well, so how do I repair what I have torn up in the way I was living my life? How can I repair that, create some foundations to help me proceed with the rest of my life? I had people telling me, just quit your job, Deane. Why do you do that? It's too hard. It's too painful. How many baby deaths did you run last month? How many mass shootings have you responded to? How many victims have you talked to? How many suicides? Why do you keep doing that? I'm like, because it's a calling. It's what I want to do. This is where I'm meant to be. But I had to figure out how to keep doing it, and get myself healthy and well so that I could continue doing it. So the how is how you do it. The how is the habits of wellness. So 1, 2, 3 resiliency. I know it's probably cliche and you've heard this before: body, mind, spirit. But if we take each of these elements of who we are and look at them and specifically break them down, what can I do to strengthen my body? What can I do to strengthen my mind? What can I do to strengthen my spirit? How do I make these pieces of who I am resilient? How do I get back to a resiliency that maybe I didn't know I had? And this is how we do it. And so we know this because Maslow's hierarchy of needs points to the priorities. Number 1 priority is our bodies. We can't do anything without physical health. I believe wholeheartedly that if we don't take time for our wellness, we will be forced to take time for our illness. We have to prioritize our bodies. And this Maslow's hierarchy of needs, on the very base, is our physiologic needs. This is air, water, food, shelter, sleep, clothing. Now, the reproduction, that's not the sex part. We don't get there until love and belonging. Reproduction is literally the physical body's ability to reproduce. When people are physically sick, that part of their body shuts down. Reproduction isn't going to happen if your physical body is ill. So we know that this is the base of our ability to grow. There is no growth without safety. So we have to have safety in our physiologic needs being met and our personal security needs being met. So back to ACEs, I didn't think we'd be talking about it, but it's just such a powerful component to address. These adverse childhood events likely affected our physiologic and our safety needs. Those were threatened. The food givers, the food bringers in our life, our parents or our guardians or these adults in our life, we were dependent upon them for our survival. And if that was threatened, if our relationship with them was threatened, well, we had to do whatever we had to do to make them happy with us, to continue bringing us the food and keeping us clothed and in safe shelter. And there's several items, I think 4 or 5 items on the ACEs, this list of 10, that directly impacts this physiological need for water, food, shelter, sleep. In abusive homes, sleep is often disrupted. Children waking up to, police in their home or ambulances at the door, taking one of their parents away. Their safety needs were threatened. They may not have had the proper health care. They may not have had safe places to sleep or live, being homelessness, these are safety needs. So if we go back to, okay, what do I have control of? Well, now as an adult, we have a lot of control in this area, and prioritizing our physical needs is going to be where we start building on this resiliency. There is no love and belonging unless these bottom needs are met first. There is no ability to have a self-esteem or respect for ourselves if these other needs aren't being met. Like, we can't get up to this growth status until the safety is met. I hope that's making sense. So body basics, there are so many things that we can do to strengthen and heal our bodies. I am a huge fan of Dr. Andrew Huberman. If you've never heard of him, he is a neurobiologist, neuro-ophthalmologist, professor of medicine out of Stanford. And he has created a podcast called the Huberman Lab Podcast, where he brings no fee education on science-related topics. What I love so much about him, and this is particularly valuable for first responders, is everything he teaches about and speaks on is through the lens of optimal performance. How do we get our bodies, our minds, optimally performing? And he addresses so many things. I will warn you, his podcasts are very long, but he always has show notes where you can sort of scroll down and say, okay, I'm not going to listen to this 3-hour podcast, but I am going to scroll down through the show notes and see what sparks my interest and listen to that a little bit more. So he talks about cold exposure and breath work and how powerful that has been in adjusting the way the body responds to stressors. Nervous system regulation can be done. So out of that dysregulated state, well, how do we bring our nervous system back online and back into a regulated state? How do I find that window of tolerance? I don't know how to do it. I'm, always up here in fight or flight mode, or I'm completely shut down. Where is that sweet spot, that middle ground? I'm telling you what, cold exposure in the way of cold plunges, and I'm talking 50 degrees or less, is a phenomenal way to get your nervous system back functioning again. Early morning sunlight is a powerful way to set your circadian rhythm. Now all you night shifters, don't come after me, because you can get some benefit here at nighttime. So if you have to work nights and you wake up in the dark and you come home in the dark and you have to sleep during the day, waking up in the dark, turn on all the lights, get all the lights in your face as much as possible, turn on the bathroom light, turn on as many lights as you can to trigger your brain to say, okay, it's time to wake up now. But specifically the sun in the morning, if you can get early morning sunlight before 10 a.m., the building blocks of melatonin start to happen. So when the sun enters the retina, there's building blocks that are being created for you to have good sleep later that night. Bedtime rituals are huge. Now, again, I know that my first responders don't always get to have consistent sleep and wake times, but there are things that you can do around your sleep to improve that area. Being able to power your body down when you are able to sleep, learning some tips and tricks on how to do that will get your body resting when you can rest, so that you have energy when you need to have energy. I think we all know the importance of water and how vital it is to our bodies. But the most powerful component to water is it helps flush out stress hormones. So if we've had a super hard shift and we have done so much in this fight or flight response, we've got adrenaline that is now circulating in our bodies and doesn't have anywhere to go. It needs to be flushed out. Intuitive nourishment. There's no the one best diet that you can follow is the one you'll follow. So whatever works best for you. I think by now we all know what foods are healthy and nourishing and what foods are not. But you can take a deep dive into that as well. There's been so many additives and toxins and exposure to chemicals that 100 years ago, our ancestors didn't have exposure to. So we know that that has created an environment for our bodies that it's not used to functioning in. So our diets can use an overhaul to clean that up to help our bodies respond. Monitoring your heart rate variability. I'm so curious to know, put a 1 in the chat box if you monitor your heart rate variability. So there are certain devices that, not just your heart rate, the heart rate variability, the space between heart rate, the heartbeats. We know that the higher the HRV, it's associated with a healthy diet. So you can improve your heart rate variability and thus lower your risk of disease or not functioning so well by a healthy diet and increasing your heart rate variability. Steady glucose versus glucose spikes are paramount to your body's functioning. Now I get it. There are times when we don't have time to consider how this, nourishment we're about to take in is going to affect our glucose spikes. If you've been, running for 12 hours, in work, I think primarily of my hot shots, they're in the wilderness and they are fighting fire and cutting line and sawing trees, and they're not going to think about, I wonder if I should eat this right now or not. No, they just need fuel. But when you can control glucose spikes, that is going to be a better way to approach nutrition than not. There's a great book recently put out. There's this chemist, and she's a phenomenal, lovely lady. She's a French chemist, and she put together this book called The Glucose Goddess. And what's cool about that is she shows the science behind glucose spikes and what foods can slow down the glucose circulating in your body. And we know that's associated with health. We need to avoid those spikes, because what happens when you have, when you drink a Monster, you drink a really sugary drink or meal or whatever, you get a surge in energy, but within the next hour, you're going to plummet. Your body's going to be screaming for more of this sugar and energy. And if you're living your life like that, you're going up and down all of the time. And your body doesn't have a chance to have a steady state of glucose available. So there's the body basics. Number 2, so we got the body taken care of, and there are, I can talk for another hour about all the different ways that we can help our bodies to thrive and be resilient. We're going to shift right now to the mind. Our mindset is everything. Your body will follow your mind. Here's a good example of that. If you wake up in the morning and you say, today is going to be a crappy day, I can just feel it in my bones, today is going to be a bad day, you're going to walk out to your car and get in, and it's not going to start. And you're going to say, see, told you, bad day. You're going to get your coffee and the barista is going to be rude to you. And you're going to say, see, told you, bad day. What's happening is your brain is doing the best it can to help support your belief. So you had a belief, today's a bad day. Your brain's like, oh, we need to find evidence to support this belief. Everywhere you look now, you're going to see evidence to support that this is a bad day. Conversely, if you wake up like, today's going to be a great day. Now, I get it. We don't want to be toxic positivity, Pollyanna-ish, but we can go into the day with a hope and sort of a perspective that I have everything I need to have the best day possible. I'm going to approach today with new, fresh eyes. I'm going to do my best to find the positive in every moment. this is now setting up our mindset, and our body is listening. Our body is saying, oh, we're going to have a good day. Cool. All right, let's have a good day. And so here's another way to approach mindset. What I found as a first responder clinician for the last 12 years is when a first responder is really struggling with a situation in their life, they really have a hard time seeing a way out of it, or have a hard time seeing or believing that it's ever going to end. And so what I've done, and to help show them this is temporary, you've done hard things before, is ask them, tell me about a hard thing you've done in your life, a difficult time that you endured. What was that like for you? You probably thought you weren't going to survive it. You probably thought that was the end of the world. And look at you here. You're here now. So recalling that difficult time provides the evidence that you can meet challenges and overcome them. We often forget that we've done hard things in the past. And so we're facing a hard thing right now, and we've lost all perspective to see that, well, I've done hard things before. I can do this too. And I bring this up specifically about first responders, because remember those 9 first responder suicides I shared with you that I had worked. And this was over a period of, it was about a year, maybe a little bit more than a year. And by 9 first responder suicides, I mean, this was 9 departments, 9 families, all within Southern California. And it was brutal. Here's the tragedy of it, or the connection to this mindset. Every single one of those 9, this was the pattern, all were within a week of a breakup. All 9 within a week of a breakup. So what that tells me is they found themselves in this horribly painful situation, didn't believe that it could ever get better, didn't believe that their pain was going to end, and was really struggling with this change that was about to happen for them. And lost perspective that, wait a second, I've done hard things before, I can do this hard thing too. And I'll share with you a story. I had a deputy that was brought to me by a peer supporter. This was many years ago, 10 years ago, more. And he was suicidal. He had come from court, and he was going through a divorce, and the judge had ordered this huge amount of spousal and child support, and I don't know if it was a high percentage or all of his overtime. It was some ridiculous amount of money. And he was like, why bother? Why am I going to work? Like, my kids hate me. You know, my wife doesn't want anything to do with me. We're divorcing, and here we go. And now I'm slapped with this huge amount of money I'm supposed to pay every month. I don't know how I'm going to do that. And for 2.5 hours, I mean, I finally got him to sit down, but for 2.5 hours, he was really pacing back and forth and was very agitated and anxious about this impending change. And, I set aside my entire day. I called the office, canceled the rest of my appointments, and I stayed with him for 2.5 hours until we had a plan to keep him safe. And then I worked with him regularly, a couple of times a week, actually, for several months, until we got him to a place of stability again. And he was able to see, okay, maybe this isn't going to be the end of the world. Maybe I can find some life in here. Maybe my kids will come back to me someday. 5 years later, so I didn't see him anymore, right? And when I have to assume that when I don't see a client anymore, that they're doing well. I have to assume that. I can't be losing sleep worried about you. I am confident we did good work. I'm confident you're doing well. 5 years later, though, I see his name pop up on my schedule, and I was like, uh-oh, what's going on? And I met him, and I brought him into my office, and he said, I bet you don't get many of these, but I'll probably cry. I just wanted to tell you, you saved my life. And because of you, I have a new life. And he started showing me pictures of his new wife and his new boat and his new house, and how proud he was of where he had come. And he said, I know that you don't get thanked very much. And I'm like, how about never? This is amazing. But a life was saved. He couldn't gain the perspective of everything was going to be okay, but I was able to help him gain that perspective. So recognizing you can do hard things will help you get through hard things again. There are so many hacks for mindset, but first I want to show you this illustration. So our bodies, our beings, our humanness is broken up into 3 different elements, and we're going to keep spirituality out of this for just a moment. In our brain is where we house, this is where our thoughts and our beliefs are housed. This is everything I think about the world. This is everything I believe about the world and myself and my relationships and the work that I do. It's all up here. Now, down in here is the big F word. This is where feelings happen. This is where sensations occur. And we have to interpret what these feelings or sensations are through the filter of what I think and believe. And then the third element of who we are is behavior. So here's the scenario. Put a 1 in the chat box if you love roller coasters, like love roller coasters. I am here for it. Give me the highest roller coaster with the fastest speed. Put a 1 in the chat box if you love roller coasters. Now, if you hate roller coasters, not getting on it, no matter what, put a 2 in the chat box. Ain't happening. I'll even challenge you. Can I give you $100? Would you get on it? Put a 2 with an exclamation mark. Absolutely not. Nope, not getting on a roller coaster. All right. So when you are in that little cart and you're climbing, click, 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 click. I'm giving all those people that said, no roller coasters, a little panic attack right now. You're not on a roller coaster. It's just, we're just pretending right now. So you're in this little box, right? Click, 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 click. What is happening in your physical body? What is your physical body doing? You're having sensations. You're having symptoms. My paramedics, what are those symptoms? Things like increased heart rate, sweaty palms, butterflies in your stomach, maybe some dizziness, maybe dry mouth, maybe bubble guts. Like physically, you're having symptoms, right? Now, those symptoms are exactly the same for the person that loves roller coasters and the person that hates roller coasters. Here's the difference. The person that loves roller coasters, what are they saying? What are they saying to themselves? They're having these symptoms and they're getting higher and higher and higher. They're saying something. They're probably saying, this is going to be so much fun, right? They're saying, I'm so excited. I'm here for this. I can't wait for that drop. Behaviorally, what are they doing? They're probably smiling. Their head is probably up. Maybe they put their arms up in the air, right? Because they're excited. They want to experience more, intensify the effect. And they're believing this is fun. Now, the person that hates roller coasters, what are they thinking? What are you thinking if you hate roller coasters? Get me off of here. Why did I do this? I'm going to die. This is horrible. This is uncomfortable, right? And what's your body doing? Likely your head is down. Likely your eyes are closed. Likely your jaw is clenched. Likely you're gripping the safety bar and double and triple and quadruple checking that you're actually locked in it. You will not be lifting your hands up over your head. You're probably not smiling. Maybe you are. But you're thinking, this is horrible. I'm going to die. This is dangerous. Get me off of here. Right? Weird though, right? Because the symptoms were exactly the same. Whether you loved roller coasters or hate roller coasters, the difference is what you think and believe about the experience. Your body does not know the difference between excited or scared, excited or nervous. Body doesn't know the difference. Only your mind does. So you're approaching this roller coaster. If you love roller coasters, you're like, I'm excited. If you hate roller coasters, you're thinking, I am scared to death. I don't want anything to do with this. So here's Anger Management 101. You can separate these pieces. Put a pause between what you think and believe and the feelings you're having. Pause. What is this feeling? What meaning am I making out of it? What does this say about me? What does this say about them? Ooh, what is it? I'm feeling really something, frustrated, angry, upset. I'm feeling something. So we put a pause there. Next thing is we put a pause between our behavior and what we're feeling and thinking. So no action. And you probably none of you have ever done this, but you've seen this where someone throws something in anger and it breaks. Do you think they thought that through? Do you think they thought, you know what I'm going to do? I'm so angry right now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to throw this $1,000 phone. I'm going to throw it against the wall and it's going to break and then I'm going to feel better. No, absolutely not. There was no thinking involved at all. What happened was there was a feeling that became so overwhelming, it hijacked the behavior and the person acted without thinking at all. There was no thinking. In fact, when we're deconstructing this sort of anger management system here, we say, pause. Counting to 10 does work. Because it gives you some clarity and some understanding of, wait a second, I'm feeling a certain thing. What is this? What am I thinking about it? Because when adrenaline goes up, cognition goes down. Our brain loses the ability to think critically because the feeling is so powerful. This feeling is designed to get us to do something. If a tiger was to come through my window right now, I don't need to think about what to do. I need to quickly act to get the heck out of the room or fight him off or whatever I need to do. I don't need to think. So this survival system in my body immediately gives me energy to react and do things. But here's the challenge. When's the last time a tiger came through your window? Like, we don't have the same level of threat that our ancestors did. We don't have those kind of threats. But in the moment, our nervous system can't read, is this a real threat or an imagined threat? You ever been thinking about something and all of a sudden your body is physically upset? Maybe you're physically ill and you're like, what the heck is happening right now? Well, because your body is reading what your mind is visualizing. Think of a pickle. When you think of a pickle, if you really thought about it for a moment and how juicy and crispy and sour they are, your mouth probably starts watering, right? Weird, right? There's no pickle here. There's no scent of a pickle. All my mind did was think of a pickle and my body responded. This is how powerful this mind-body connection is. Your body will follow your mind. And I can go on and on and on and on. But we learned in Olympic, so there was this study that looked at Olympic skiers. And they hooked them up with all these, brain scanning equipment or whatever, and said, visualize the slaloms you're about to take, visualize the jumps, visualize yourself landing all of those moguls, whatever they do. And they recorded the brain waves. Then they did the same thing, but they put them on the slopes and they said, okay, do your routine, your jumps, your moguls, your landing, this, all of that. The brain activity was exactly the same. Your body, your brain physically responds as if it's happening. So this is where, psychology or sports psychology 101 comes in. If I can train you to visualize making the shot, sticking the landing, whatever it is, and your body's already prepping for that to happen. Powerful stuff. There's the mind-body connection. All right. Mindset mastery is possible. I like to remind people, don't believe everything you think. Our brain has something like 70,000 thoughts a day, some ridiculous number, 70,000 thoughts a day. And guess what? 60,000 of those are repeats from yesterday. And most of them are negative, because if you think about it, think about survival for a moment. Our body, our mind has to perceive and seek out the negative, because that would be a survival response. I have to be able to quickly recognize this is a threat, that's a threat, and avoid that or do something different for my survival. But again, going back to like modern day society, there's not a whole lot of things that threaten our survival in our day-to-day life. Of course, unless you're a first responder, unless you're a police officer and you're running out into danger. Yes, I get that. Absolutely. But back to sort of day-to-day life and picking up the kids from the pickup line at school, your life is not being threatened right there. So our mindset can be mastered. We know this because neuroplasticity is a thing. Neuroplasticity is the theory or the understanding that my brain can rewire. I can do something differently. This is how people, I had a cousin who had some brain damage. He fell off a bike when he was little. He had to learn how to speak again. That part of his brain had been damaged, but another part of the brain picked up that task of speech. Neuroplasticity says my brain can rewire. We can do some biohacking for this optimal mindset. Believing, visualizing, practicing mindfulness. Either you are mindful or your mind is full. It's one or the other. It's not both. Mindfulness recognizes that what I'm doing right now is the only thing my mind is attending to. So this would be eating a meal. And how many of us, I'm guilty of this, how many of us eat very mindlessly? We just eat and like, whoa, did I just eat all of that? I don't even remember. Mindfulness would say, smell it, recognize each bite, like be present with all of that. When our mind is full of all of these other things, it makes it difficult to be mindful in each moment that we're in. So recognize that. Ask yourself, am I being mindful in my speech, in my actions? Or is my mind so full that I don't have the capacity to be mindful in this moment? Addressing limiting beliefs. Now, this is a whole nother, box of things to address, but a limiting belief is something you can change. You can recognize, wow, this belief I have about myself, I don't like it, doesn't serve me. How can I change that? That's what therapy is for. That's what coaching is for. I'm a big fan of real-time tools. Real-time tools for self-care are, I had developed sort of 4 real-time tools that you can implement at any moment of the day to sort of give yourself a moment, give yourself some strengthening, some tools, some relaxation in each and every moment. One of those has to do with breathing, going with the flow. Breathing, recognizing your breath holds so much energy and so much power. And when you recognize you're stressed, you are likely holding your breath and your breath is very shallow. But if you were to extend your exhale, and then take another breath in, your body is now going, okay, all right, we're good. We're good. You can train your body to breathe in a way that gives your nervous system what it needs to thrive in this moment. So you've heard of combat breathing or the 4x4 method, inhaling for 4, holding for 4, exhaling for 4, holding for 4. That's one way. I like extending the exhale. Breathe in a 4-6-8 pattern or a 4-4-8. Inhale 4, hold 4, exhale 8. This gives the nervous system the message, I'm okay here. Then there is psychotherapy and all the different tools that we use in therapy. So as a psychotherapist, I pull from many different tools in my toolbox. RRT is one of my newer favorite ones. If you haven't heard of it, it's called Rapid Resolution Therapy. It's a very unique perspective and way of looking at things. We get the right side of the brain involved. And it shifts things like that, like quickly. EMDR, you may have heard of that. Eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, goes off the theory of traumatic information can get stuck in the mind, in the brain, and this treatment, eye movement, can desensitize that information and reprocess it so it gets filed away and put away so it doesn't haunt you every day. I'm also a big fan of somatic experiencing. Our bodies respond and can use some help in moments of stress and tension. You may have heard a meditation before where it says, relax the muscles in your jaw. Why is it that all of a sudden, just hearing that and someone giving you that direction, the muscles in your jaw relax? Wild, right? That's because our bodies respond to cues like that. You can improve your vagal tone. Best way to improve vagal tone, and if you haven't heard about vagal tone or polyvagal theory, this is the belief that our nervous system is this superhighway of information and can get hyper, and has a hard time toggling between different states, between hyperarousal and hypoarousal. Well, we can improve vagal tone to get us in that optimal window of tolerance. Cold exposure is my favorite way to get at it right away. It's quick. And hypnosis can heal subconscious. Hypnosis is a powerful method or tool that can shift things as well. So how do we sustain all of this? Like, gosh, Deane, that's a lot of stuff. How do I even begin this journey of wellness and resiliency, and how do I maintain all of this? This is a lot. Well, it's going to take some time. If you are not doing any of these things to support your mind and your body, then pick one, start there. And in order to continue this wellness resilience practice, you're going to have boundaries. Now, boundaries can sometimes sound like a dirty word. I recognize that, but boundaries are about protecting what's on the inside. You likely have a fence around your home. You certainly have a lock on your door, right? That's to protect what's on the inside. If you didn't care what was on the inside, you'd leave your door unlocked, or you'd leave the fence open, the gate open, right? Or you'd leave your car unlocked. If you didn't care, well, maybe if you didn't have crime in your area, but if you didn't care what was on the inside, you wouldn't protect it by locking it, right? Boundaries do that for us physically and mentally. I have a boundary that I had set in place with regard to my sleep. So I would say that if anyone is embarking on a journey of wellness and improving their wellness and resilience, start with your sleep. Dial that in as much as possible. And it doesn't matter if you work nights or shift work, you can still get some good habits around that. So what my first boundary that I had set was bedtime is 10 o'clock. At 10 o'clock, my phone goes on airplane mode. So I don't take 24-hour call anymore. And I have continued to maintain that boundary to protect my sleep. I find that if I don't do that, I'm hurting for the next several days. You can put boundaries around social situations. Well, I'm going to go home at 10 o'clock, or I'm, whatever these things that you need to put in place to protect yourself and your health and your well-being, those start with the boundaries. Learning how to say no. And I'll tell you, learning how to say no is not easy. The first time I said no to a call, so it was a call for a deployment. I had been working all day already. I knew my daughter was at home. I knew I wanted to go home and make dinner and decompress from the day because I was working the next day. And I get a call. We have this first responder in crisis. How quickly can you get to him? And in my head, I'm like, oh, geez, okay, can I? Yes, I think I can. Is it best? Do I want to? No. I said, no, I'm sorry, I'm not available. And I hung up the phone and I sobbed. I started with what's wrong with me? Why can't I do it? Why did I say no? I'm choosing, my comfort over theirs. I went down this whole rabbit hole of beating myself up for saying no. And I remember I'd been working with the therapist at the time, and she said, Deane, you're not the only one in the world that was called to respond to that. They got someone else, and that person got the help that they needed. And I needed to hear that. Because I know for you guys as a first responder, you think you're it. But boundaries help protect us and keep our mental health and wellness strong. Having mental flexibility, this goes to expectations. If you expect to get in the car and not hit traffic, if you live in Southern California, you are setting yourself up for some frustration. You're going to hit traffic. That's just how it is around here. And having the flexibility to recognize, okay, my expectation was there wasn't going to be traffic. I see that there is. Let me pivot. Let me flex. And okay, what do I need to do to handle this frustration, this setback? Having that flexibility, and keep your eye on the why. Why do you keep doing this? Why do you keep doing this work? Why do you even have to maintain boundaries? Well, so that you can continue to do the work. Friedrich Nietzsche said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." When life circumstances become so challenging and so difficult, we better figure out why we bother to get up in the morning. Why do we continue to do it? And landing on what that is for you may take a little finesse. I know for me, I had to get clear on what that was. I didn't know. I wanted to save the world. I wanted every first responder to have mental health and wellness and resiliency. I didn't want to see one suicide. I didn't want to see any of my first responders affected by the horrible, gruesome calls they go on. And that's clearly an expectation that wasn't going to be met, right? But I hadn't gotten clear on, okay, how was I going to be able to do that? Well, I couldn't. So how I landed on my why was this story. And this is the last story of our time together. You may have heard of this story of the little boy and the starfish. And if you haven't, I'll cliff note it for you. Little boy and the starfish goes like this. An old man walks on the beach every morning. Every morning he takes, an hour to walk down the beach and just enjoy his morning walk. And every morning, hundreds and hundreds of starfish wash up onto the shore. And he steps over them, and he might, make sure he's not stepping on anything, just keeps walking. And this particular morning, he sees a little boy up ahead in this mound of starfish. And he's like, what is going on? As he gets closer, he calls out to the little boy. He says, "Son, what are you doing?" And the little boy says, "I'm picking up starfish and I'm throwing them back in the ocean." I'm like, duh. And the old man says, "Son, there are miles of washed up starfish. There are thousands of starfish washed up onto the shore. There's no way you can possibly make a difference. You're wasting your time." And the little boy, without hesitation, picks up another starfish and throws it in the ocean and says, "But I made a difference to this one." So my why was to alleviate suffering one person at a time. That's how I got clear on what my why was. And that would be okay. I can't save the world. I can't alleviate suffering for everybody, but I can do it one person at a time. And that's a successful day for me. So here is some contact information for me if you are interested. If you have any questions, any resources I can point you to, hey, you referenced this, where can I find that? Please send me an email. Yes, I am known as the Cop Shrink on Instagram if you're there, but that doesn't mean I don't care about firefighters. Cop Shrink just sounded better than firefighter shrink. So, and my website is there too. You can always find a new blog or great information referencing some tip or tool. And I've just been so honored to be here with you today. So that is the end of my time with you, or my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions or respond to any curiosity you might have about any of this.
Well, Deane, thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
Very, lots of stuff to take in. Some of it's reminders and some of it's new. But the one thing that really hit home that, and we've been talking about this over the last couple of weeks when we were deployed on Maui, is, we talk about peer support, we talk about clinical support, we talk about mental health and wellness. And a lot of times we talk about it from that 30,000 foot level, and we do get overwhelmed with how are we going to do it. But like the starfish, you do it if the peer teams, if the clinicians, if the intervention teams whoever gets involved, if they can do one first responder at a time, over time it'll be great. It'll be a long list, but to really do our job successfully and really make a difference in one individual's life is we have to focus, and everybody's different. There is no one way for everybody. It's usually one way for one person. So
Right.
we talk about that a lot right now, not to get too overwhelmed with that 30,000 foot level, but let's just see what we need and let's build it one first responder at a time. So thank you so much for what you present and your passion. We can definitely feel it and see it. So I would like to offer anybody that's on the Zoom, if you have a question, you can put it in the chat. I can read it. If you want to raise your hand, I can, you can ask the question yourself, but we got a few minutes. So if you want to ask a question, please engage. This is the time to engage.
Or let's chat, anything that
Yeah,
you put away. Let's chat, what do you think about?
Let's talk story.
Let's talk stories.
I have something to ask. My name is Sandra Younger, and I'm a coach and a speaker, and I've done a lot of work also with resilience. I really appreciate all of the research that you've done, Deane. This was a great info-packed presentation. I even have, and I speak about resilience and possibility a lot of times to firefighters or emergency managers. I have a resource that may be valuable to some people, and I'm not sure how to get it to. I was thinking particularly the people in Maui, and when you say there are no clinicians there, I have seen in my own experience as a wildfire survivor, which is how I got into this, that this concept of resilience is a missing link in community recovery. So I came up with this little booklet, which I also have as an ebook, and it's a complimentary download off my website. So do you think that would be something worth sharing with Maui? And if so, how to do that? It's written for disaster survivors.
Okay. That's beautiful. And if you could, can you put a link in the chat box for everybody that's here to gain that resource? That would be phenomenal.
Yeah. Sure. It's at my website, which is sandrayounger.com. So I'll just put that in there. You might get a note saying it's not a safe website because I don't have the HPPS on it yet, but it is a safe download. So thank you. I just want to try and share that with as many people as I can. And again, I appreciate what you're doing, Deane. I'd really love to talk further with you some other time.
Thank you, Sandra. I'll be at the conference this year.
Okay.
What was the name of the book, Sandra?
Well, I call it the Comeback Formula, or a resilience building guidebook, but it's based on a lot of the same research that Deane shared, and especially the idea that we can build resilience. It's not a static thing we have or don't have. Yeah, awesome. That was news to me too.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great news.
Really new stuff, and the last 5 years has really just exploded with wellness and resilience, when 5 years ago, 10 years ago, we didn't know much about it.
Yeah, it's all come out of positive psychology, of course, which is a new discipline within the last 30 years or so, which I didn't know about until my own fire experience. And I started looking into how do people come back from adversity, and found this whole body of research. So that was exciting.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure. Thank you for entertaining it.
And then Deane, you talked about a book written by Amie. I didn't get the name of the book or the last name. So maybe.
So she doesn't have a book just yet. I'm going to type it in the chat. Her name is Dr. Amie. And Dr. Amie is what she goes by. Her last name is Apagian. And her body of work is called The Biology of Trauma.
Hmm.
The Biology of Trauma. It is phenomenal. I had taken her course. She calls it the 21-day journey, where she teaches, for 21 days, these different tools to heal the body, the physical nervous system. And she's just such a dynamic physician who has transitioned all of her work now into this biology of trauma. She has interviewed Gabor Mate and Stephen Porges, and like the big giants in this space of nervous system and resilience and wellness. Like, she has entertained the audiences of all those phenomenal key players. So yes, maintaining one's sobriety is also fostering their resiliency. 100%. Yes. Good stuff.
Everybody out there, everybody's doing great work. Just keep it up. As much work as we're doing, there's still work to be done. We're still learning. We're still finding out what works, what doesn't work. But every single day we are making a difference, and that goes for all of us. I don't care if you're a peer, a chaplain, a clinician, someone that just cares. We are all making a difference every single day. And if you start to look at the testimonials of people that have come through some of those hardships, it's just, that's why we do it. And Deane, when you got emotional there, I wanted to just tell you, that's why we do what we do. And so keep up the great work. So with that, I'd like to thank everybody, and we'll talk soon.